Nyck de Vries has been a part of the most popular topic on the grid throughout the 2022 summer break, but his contract with Alpha Tauri is likely to cause some trouble for Mercedes. Nyck has been a reserve driver for Mercedes and filled the FP1 spot on multiple occasions this year, either for Mercedes or Aston Martin. However, now that he is part of Alpha Tauri and practically Red Bull, his obligations towards Mercedes will see a drastic change. What does de Vries' contract mean for Mercedes? Why did Mercedes let go of their reserve driver just for him to potentially join their fiercest rival from 2024 onwards? This video has all the answers, so don't go anywhere. Before we dive deep into the de Vries saga, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like our video and turn on the notifications. After his amazing debut in Monza, it was evident that de Vries' place is certainly in F1. Alex Albon had appendicitis and had to undergo emergency surgery, which is why de Vries' appearance in Monza was kind of a rushed one. Nevertheless, he only drove the FW44 for less than an hour in the last free practice on Friday, and that only adds to the narrative that he is a great driver that can adapt to any kind of opportunity thrown at him. He outqualified Latifi and finished P12 just to start P8 after multiple drivers took engine penalties ahead of him. Not only did he make it work in a Mercedes-affiliated team, Williams, but he was the main reason why Latifi's sacking has been brought to light. Still, many thought that de Vries was the perfect replacement for Latifi, but the Dutchman chose to go to Alpha Tauri. The question is, why did Mercedes give up a driver who knows a lot about their team to a Red Bull-affiliated team? And is there any chance that we'll see de Vries driving for Red Bull's senior team in the near future? The answer to the first question is very simple, and that is, de Vries wasn't bound to Mercedes. True, he had close connections to them as a reserve driver and was present at many meetings the team had when it came to the technical stuff for the car, but he wasn't their protege. That was the case with Russell, who was Mercedes' protege while he was driving for Williams, but it was nowhere near the case with de Vries. He was bound to go anywhere he liked or saw fit, although he only drove Mercedes and Mercedes-affiliated cars in the FP1 sessions on Friday. When talking about the breakup with Mercedes, de Vries said, "I guess I was perceived as a Mercedes driver in the past couple of years, which I was to an extent, that I was racing for them in Formula E and active as an F1 reserve driver. But apart from those contracts, there was no other affiliation. Of course, we built up a very friendly relationship over the year, so they've been very supportive and helpful. But at the same time, I'm here to look after my own interest. Of course, I hope that they are disappointed to lose something. I don't know. You may ask that question to them. But I also think that they are pleased for me and happy to see me getting an opportunity on the grid in F1 next year." On the other hand, it seemed like de Vries was very close with Verstappen even prior to the signing coming out in public. This is why the Dutchman said that he perceives Verstappen as his older brother, although de Vries is slightly older than him. It's evident that the close relationship that Verstappen and de Vries had outside of the grid led to him signing for Alpha Tauri and potentially suiting up next to Verstappen from 2024 onwards. When talking about what led to his signing with the Red Bull-affiliated team, de Vries said, "We, me and Max, obviously had dinner after the Monza event together in Monaco, and we talked about the possibilities and opportunities. And that resulted in having a conversation with Dr. Marco when we met that same week in Austria. It's not like one thing is the key to anything. So far, I've been looking after myself and I've always listened to the people around me. And knowledge is very important in this industry. And I think sometimes you see people holding their cards very close to their chests. And it's important to share information to know what's going on. And that was very much that kind of conversation. Nevertheless, one cannot help but wonder how this is going to turn out for Mercedes. De Vries knows a thing or two about how Mercedes operates and some technical stuff revolving around the team, so could he be a key factor in Red Bull's further dominance? After it became evident that he signed with Alpha Tauri at the Singapore GP, de Vries was no longer present at Mercedes' meetings or in Mercedes' garage. That same arrangement continued at the Japanese Grand Prix, and according to Elliott, the technical director of Mercedes, it's a shame that de Vries went in to join their fiercest rivals' affiliated team. We're really pleased for him, for the opportunity he's got. Maybe a shame where he's going, but that's what it is. I think he deserves the opportunity. I think he's shown he's a very good driver. Having him in the garage has been brilliant. He's a really nice guy, very switched on, and he understands the car. And so I think we have faith in him, that we can put him in the car, we can do tests with him, and we can trust him not to be looking at the things we don't want him to look at, and I think he'll do a good job, said Elliott. Obviously, Mercedes will suffer a bit from this situation, and although they don't want to admit it, de Vries' connections with Mercedes in the past couple of years have led to the fact that he knows a thing or two about the team. They weren't able to provide him with a seat in any of the affiliated teams, such as Williams or Aston Martin, which is why he was bound to look for a spot somewhere else. It will be a bitter pill to swallow for Mercedes to see de Vries in Red Bull from 2024 onwards, if this scenario turns out to be a true one, but that would be the reality, and they have to deal with the consequences if they turn out to be realistic. Still, it's not a secret that de Vries deserves a spot in F1. That has been said by George Russell, the Mercedes driver who had to wait 3 years until his debut with the Mercedes senior team after gathering experience in Williams. According to him, the stars couldn't have aligned more perfectly than they did for de Vries in Monza, as he added, "I've always rated him. In go-karting, he was the man to beat. I never raced him in go-karting, but out of all of us, he was probably the most successful one in go-karting. I've never not rated him. I think to get to F1, you need to do the job at the right time when there is an opportunity on the grid, and sometimes those stars don't align. But with the amount of stars that aligned in Monza, it probably made up for the unfortunateness of a few years ago. Out of the karting boys, Nyck was the only one who hadn't made it to F1, who probably deserved to make it to F1. So those 5 drivers, between myself, Alex, Max, Charles and Nyck, who were in that period racing against each other in 11 and 12, as I said, Nyck was the only one who didn't make it. So happy to see him there. What's next for de Vries? With him not accepting the Williams seat, it's likely that he recognized the potential that Alpha Tauri had offered to him. The fact that Gasly left the team for Alpine and he would have to measure his strength with Tsunoda, a much younger and a more liable driver, was truly something he couldn't refuse. Why, you may ask yourself? Well, if Red Bull decides to not continue the contract with Perez after 2024, where are they going to look for a replacement first? Obviously Alpha Tauri. And they are going to put in the driver that has the best results out of the 2 from this team. However, it is far from certain that de Vries will have a dominant season in Red Bull. Just look at what happened to Gasly and his tenure at Red Bull in 2019. His dream could quickly turn into a nightmare, and that is something he needs to be well aware of. With that said, Mercedes has truly lost a talented reserve driver, but there is only so much room for 2 drivers at a time, and sometimes you have to accept the consequences of not having enough space for all of your academy's talented drivers. What do you think about de Vries' move to Alpha Tauri? Let us know in the comments below.